What is up, everyone? It's the guy here, and welcome back to another episode of Themindhere. This is my bi-weekly podcast where I talk about what's going on my YouTube channel, discuss what I do behind the scenes, and talk about other things that come to mind. It also serves as a way to keep myself accountable and externally motivated to get my work done. If you're interested in how I make my music and videos, feel free to take a look at previous episodes. Welcome to all of you who are here for the first time. If you like my content and want to see more, please consider subscribing. All right, let's start off today by talking about just a little progress and update on my YouTube channel. So the first thing that I want to take a note of is the previous episodes I talked about trying to put my music onto Spotify and Apple Music, and unfortunately I have not been able to do that yet. And the reason why I haven't been able to do that yet is because it has a lot to do with the process of actually putting the music, the registration process of the music. So with something like SoundCloud, for example, all you have to do for uploading music is to create the account, which is pretty easy, and then uploading the music along with various settings, and then you're done. You can just put it up there and boom, you have your SoundCloud music. Now with something like Spotify, Apple Music, or some of those more, I guess, formal platforms where you can probably monetize your music, there's a whole different process to it, and it's almost like it's almost a barrier to the music industry, especially for small music creators, people who don't have legal teams, people who aren't signed with contracts or anything like that. It's quite a hassle to get into. I tried going through a free music distribution service provider, SongTrader. A lot of the music distribution platforms out there that you need for Spotify and Apple Music, they require a monthly subscription, but with SongTrader it was free. So I tried that out, and it turns out the process was a little more paperwork and a little more complicated than I wanted to get into, especially right now. This is, after all, a side project, not necessarily a full-out career that I'm going into, so it doesn't really make sense for me right now, and I just don't want to get into the legal issues with all of that. Plus, I don't even plan to monetize my songs as of right now. I wouldn't mind for you guys just to download the songs off of SoundCloud. And I also have the files on my website. So all of that combined, that just made me decide against doing this. And maybe in the future, if the process gets better, simplified, easier for smaller creators to go into, then I'll probably go into. Otherwise, I'm going to stay away from that and take note of that as a sort of a barrier of entry. It's something that there's some legal structures in there, and just a whole lot of bureaucracy that can be frustrating, especially for a single creator, a small creator. All right, and the next part we're gonna go into is the new song I'm going to be working on. So unfortunately, because of all the schoolwork that I have received within the past 2 weeks, I haven't been able to make too much progress on the songs, but I have decided on a structure, how I overall want the song to sound. That's not something I don't think I can explain well, so that's just something that I have to work out. It's a sort of a musical sense that you get of the song that you want. With something like this as a cover or a remix, it's a lot easier because you already have like the basic melody, right? You're just making a remix out of it or making the cover out of it. So it's a little simpler versus a completely original song. But in any case, I have that general structure, the idea down, and that's typically what I have first, because I mean the whole song is based off of that, right? Sometimes I do come up with ideas during the composition process, so there are moments of inspiration that add to it for sure. But the overall structure and idea, I have a sense of that, and I typically have a sense of what I'm doing before I get into it. And it might even change halfway. For example, the structure I had, I might start twisting it once I actually start making it, and that's perfectly fine. But I think it's important to have a good idea of what you're going to go into before you start throwing random things down onto the timeline and getting a not really pieced together sort of music. And another thing about this song is that I am both trying to put in guitar, which I've never used before and I've never played before, so that's an interesting challenge, and some other oriental sounding music, because this song is a traditional Chinese song, so I'm going to make it sound oriental, and the fact that I'm going to put some Vocaloid into it, so this is going to be the second Vocaloid song, Vocaloid-ish song that's going to come out. So all of that together is going to be very experimental. Of course, I'm going to try to polish it up as much as I can, but because I'm not really aiming for something that is, production version, there might be some I guess growing issues, or some things that I can improve off of it, but that's all part of the process. So for example, with the guitar, since I've never played it, I actually I plan to watch videos on how people play the guitar, a little bit of theory behind it, how the guitar works, and then put the instrument in. Because if I don't know how it works, then if I just put it in there, it's not going to sound realistic. It sort of diminishes from the quality, and since I'm trying to get a realistic sounding instrument in there, I want to aim for something that a real guitarist would be able to play. And similar things with the singing. I'll be looking at how real singers sing, and what are just the little things behind singing, and where sounds come from, how you control that. That will add to when I make the Vocaloid and piece together the lyrics. I'll be able to refine it to make it sound more realistic, because of course you have to base off of the real thing in order to get something that is realistic, right? If you simply stick with this idealized theory in your head and then just keep working on it without cross-referencing empirical evidence, without checking in with reality, then you're going to diverge somehow. So that is something that I keep aware of, especially when I'm doing something that is meant to be realistic. And even with something that's a little more original, you still have areas where you can look at how other people have done it before and get some reference for how it should be done, right? A lot of things that we do today, we are not in a vacuum and starting fresh. We're not reinventing the wheel. If you are, then you're probably wasting your time. A lot of things, it's already been done, so taking inspiration and lessons from other people that have already, learned it, that's the smartest way to learn. And of course, you have to be able to make mistakes and put it into practice, but reinventing it, that's not always the smart choice. And I am guilty of that sometimes. I like to do things myself, and I'm very vocal about the practicality of things and practical experience. However, reinventing the wheel and going back doing something by yourself without looking at a course that tells you about the theory behind it, all of that is important too. So it's the balance of that really brings together your skills and speeds up the process of going through that learning curve to be able to make some great content or just master your skills. All right, so this section, this episode's, I guess, thoughts I have from the past 2 weeks. We're going to look into a little bit about optimization and how I've been trying to get my life a little bit more put together and a little more optimized. One thing that I've been looking at, one way I've been trying to optimize my how I'm operating and going through my life is optimizing my life operating system. I use Notion. You might have heard of this, and if you haven't, I'll link in a great episode, a great series of videos by August Bradley. He goes into this entire Notion system that I've used. So please make sure to look at that if you're interested. But this is a life operating system, so what I do in there is I do project management in there. I also keep track of data, biometrics, and some other things that I want to track to make sure I have progress. It's a little check-in on myself. I write my reflections in there. I also put notes in there, and just it's a repository of a lot of other things. Everything from like video scripts to class notes even. Everything is sort of aggregated in here. The only thing that's not really in here that Notion isn't really good at is like a full calendar. I use Google Calendar for that, but everything else I use Notion as a central place to put all of this together. So being the life operating system, what I go to basically every day to make sure I'm keeping myself on track, I want to make sure that the system is optimized, that there aren't random pages or links that don't add to it, and other features that might slow down the process and aren't getting me to where I really want. Because with every system, even something like a life operating system, you can easily fall into the trap of trying to do something for the system rather than making the system work for you, right? Because I could easily over-engineer and over-create pages and other directories, other databases in Notion and make it super elaborate, but if it's not functional and if it doesn't actually add anything, then all it is just extra fluff that's in the way. So with that, I started looking back into the fundamentals of why I needed the system in the first place, right? The project management, the note-taking, and the data storage, all of that stuff. And looked back and thought to myself, what were some of the key elements that I needed, and what in here would I not need on a daily basis, right? On something like a daily task page where all the tasks that I need show up on there. If it's something there that I don't go to regularly, then I probably don't need it there, right? So I can just get rid of that because it's just taking up space that it's just taking up space and I don't need it there. So really anything that shouldn't be there, I'll be trying to take off. A little minimalist in some sense, but in another way, complex systems are always prone to failure and less likely to succeed than simpler systems. So that's the idea and philosophy I've taken to optimizing that. And also just in general with what I've been scheduling, I guess, looking at my schedule, I've also been trying to optimize that because I've noticed that since school started, I have been really on top of my school things. That's not an issue. But what has been an issue is the other things besides school that I want. Right now, clubs haven't started yet, and I haven't gotten any internships or anything else like that. So I don't have those to preoccupy myself, but I also haven't made as much progress as I wanted, either in my reading or in my music or anything else. So I've been taking a look at my schedule to see what I've been spending my time on and what I could be cutting down, what is necessary, stuff like that. So just taking a look at what is really going on and not lying to myself, making excuses, saying, oh, that was fine that day, right? Stuff like that will inevitably hinder you. So I've been taking a look and sort of taking a fine-tooth comb and going through my schedule and all my other systems, even my physical workstation, getting rid of some items that I don't need to be there and reorganizing. Doing that once in a while for, an update is an important thing with all of our working systems. Because, I mean, think about it this way, right? With a lot of things, if it's not improving, if it's not growing, so like plants, and a more modern day example would be like code or some project like that, if there's not version updates coming out every so often, then it's pretty much dead, right? So same thing with our living systems and our workspaces. If we're not constantly making a little tweak based off of changing conditions and just noticing improvements, then our systems have really started to die, and that can really impact how we perform. So with everything that we do here, everything is still a living system, something that is continually improving. The issue with the idea of something being stable and in a production state is that, well, it's steady, yes, but it's also not growing. And if it's not growing, then it's dying. If there's no improvement made into it, then it's dying, right? So with all of these things, with everything that we do with all these systems, it's important to realize that what we're doing with it, and if these systems are, if we notice that there's some improvements that need to be made, I don't think that we should not. I don't think that we should. Let me rephrase it this way. I don't think that we should leave it as is if we think that there are improvements that could be made, right? Iterations are important, and that is what gets us to the ultimate goal. Little steps that bring us closer to our goals, not giant leaps, because giant leaps are also prone to a lot of failures. Major version updates for a game, for example, those tend to bring in a lot of new bugs, but the tiny updates, those refine the code and bring everything closer together. So it's the bringing everything together and realizing, keeping the idea of a living system and the idea that nothing's really in production, nothing's really in the stable configuration. We're constantly improving, and just keeping that idea and mindset, that'll hopefully let us grow and improve ourselves a lot better, and keep us from becoming stuck in our ways and then end up, slowly dying out of society in some ways. So that went all over the place a little bit, but hopefully you took something out of that. If you disagree, I totally understand. I'm just spouting things from my mouth. We can engage in a conversation, but hopefully you took some lessons from that. And I guess the final thing that I've been thinking of is just the context of what's been going on, right? This is made in 2020, and a lot of things have happened in 2020, everything from the pandemic to now the wildfires that are on the west coast of the United States. That's where I live. So with all of this, it just seems that the world's coming to an end, and there's really no point. Some people have lost motivation doing things. Other people have changed in other ways, and that's understandable. But one thing to help you stay in there and keep on going is to think about it this way. Everything has come to an end, right? This too shall pass. There's a quote from this is a quote. I don't actually know where it's from, so I guess I can't say it's a quote. But these words will help you guide you through the good times and the bad times. In the good times, when everything seems like is going well and everything's going according to plan, remember that this too shall pass. This keeps you vigilant and to make sure you prepare for when things go bad, right? It's inevitable that something will go and whack a system out of order, and there'll be chaos that'll be bringing into it. So remembering that during times when things seem good, we should prepare for the worst. This too shall pass does that job. And also when times are bad, like in 2020 right now, this too shall pass reminds us that this is not a permanent state, that things will will get better, and things will transition. So it gives us, I guess it future-proofs us. So instead of having a fear mindset of what's going on right now and keeping our horizons really short, this too shall pass sort of pushes us over the horizon, saying, okay, this will pass at some point. What are you going to do afterwards? Being able to think more into the future will hopefully allow you to better plan for yourself and just better manage yourself for the future, and being able to work out some things that'll benefit you in the future rather than some things that are beneficial now but might harm you in the future. So it's just things like that, little ideas like that'll, if you let that permeate into your mind and really think about it, those little nuggets of information, just soak that in. I feel like that's what the iteration process, remember, that's what slowly changes your mindset and gets you the incremental improvements. For example, I listen to a lot of podcasts during my spare time. So when I hear something that is important or something that is something that I find interesting, I sort of let that soak in a little bit. I don't try to go into other podcasts, because then that sort of floods me with information, and that's no good. So I want to be able to fully process that and just let that sink in, and then take a few days to maybe process what that means, and maybe start enacting on it. That, I feel like, is something that is a great way to improve our mindsets and just keep us, keep us real to ourselves and keep us moving. So yeah, those are some things that I have noticed throughout my weeks, and I hopefully you guys have enjoyed this. I don't have any questions from my YouTubes, so no AMA this time. But if you are interested and you want to participate in these podcast episodes, you can go over to my YouTube channel, and in my videos, just drop a comment in there asking any question, really, any question. And if there are more than one questions asked, I'll pull one randomly and you will be featured in the next podcast episode. But all right, thank you guys so much for watching and listening. I really appreciate all the support that you guys have given me throughout this process, and I just so appreciate the community that we have got together. So thank you guys so much. Hopefully you guys are doing well, and I will see you at the next episode.